Welcome to today's edition of Severe Weather Outlooks. At least for the next several days, not a lot of cause for concern. There will be some thunderstorms. Some of them could produce some hail and gusty winds. If we take a look at the average flow at the 500 millibar level for the next 7 days or so, 6 days really, till Monday, it looks like a ridge of high pressure here, and that's going to pretty much hold fast, and a trough of low pressure out in the east. So this is not a real favorable pattern for severe weather. A couple of reasons. Mostly, though, it doesn't really allow deep moisture and instability to build over the plains. Now, eventually that will happen this weekend, and we'll cover that. But at least for the next several days, not a lot going on, and you can infer that by looking at dew points. So they're really abnormally low across much of the central plains and the eastern U.S., and starting to show maybe a little bit of a comeback there. Remember, this is an average over a week, and indeed, this area here will be where severe weather will start taking a hold, I think, a little bit more, even up into this area here over the weekend. We'll talk about it. So just a marginal risk today of severe thunderstorms in two locations along a cold front from Wisconsin back through Missouri and into southeast Kansas and through central and eastern Florida. There's no tornado risk with this one, at least nothing that the Storm Prediction Center has highlighted. But down here in Florida, they did put a 2% risk of severe thunderstorms, basically from around the Palm Coast area down to West Palm Beach and inland to about halfway through the peninsula there for today. And if you look at Nadocast, it does put a 2 to 3% risk of a tornado within 25 miles, right along that same area I was just talking about. And they also did highlight an area just between Green Bay and Milwaukee there where it's possible. And again, Nadocast it takes in current weather information and compares it to previous conditions that looked like this and said, did something happen under those conditions? That's where this map comes from. So, it's just a piece of information you should look at. So here's Wednesday. Again, very subdued pattern. We're getting a return of the possibility of some hail and gusty winds in Montana, Idaho, those areas, almost down to Salt Lake City. And again, along the front on Wednesday, this has been highlighted for a while. I think this is a hail and wind risk only from, let's say, western, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, down through all of West Virginia. That's been a pretty consistent forecast. It doesn't really even show up on the CSU, Colorado State University map, so I didn't put it on there. And then on Thursday, again, some inkling now that return moisture flow is starting to happen, so a little bit of a marginal risk over Kansas and parts of Oklahoma on Thursday. If we do look at CSU's model for that, it does show up as a wind and hail risk here, roughly in that area. A little bit of disagreement over the widespread nature of it, but again, the probabilities are all pretty low, 5%. So I usually only put this up if it backs up what the SPC has said, or if it's widespread, or if it goes to 15%. Like on Friday, for example, a perfect example, there's a little 15% bullseye right around St. Louis, whereas the SPC has not pulled the trigger on it, and they wouldn't because it's not widespread enough, and there's a lot of uncertainty with that. But just so you know that that's something that could be looked at on Friday. Now, as we get into Saturday, this popped up yesterday for the first time, and today it's been altered and expanded a little bit to go from Lincoln, Nebraska, down through central and much of eastern Kansas, down into western Oklahoma. So this is a 15% chance of any severe weather, hail, damaging winds, or tornadoes within a 25-mile radius. So if we look at CSU's model on that, it does back up that part of it pretty well. Also put the little pocket there in Kentucky, and for comparison, you can just look over here and see what the SPC issued. So pretty close. They're not really talking about this yet. But again, this many days out, there's room for tweaking, I guess you would say. Now, Sunday's is new. This just popped up here. This is a little more expansive on Sunday and goes from the dry line in northwest Oklahoma through much of Kansas, a good chunk of southern, eastern Nebraska, and a large chunk of Iowa, too, even a small portion of Missouri. That would be a threat on Sunday. CSU's outlook here. So there's the SPCs. And it matches pretty well with what they think the probabilities are for Sunday as well. So things are kicking up on the weekend, and it's part of a trend, I think. Now, if you look at the next 7 days, this is the average, not average, it's the accumulated supercell percentage over this 7-day period. So it starts today and goes for the next 7 days. And it clearly outlines some of those areas that the SPC was talking about. Then if we go to this week 2, which starts the day after that, the 19th through the 25th, huge increase uptick in traditional severe weather areas of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas for that period. And equally as intense, I think, is the period after that now spills into the first day of June. And yeah, a lot of supercell composites. Now, these things do fluctuate, as you know, if you watch this. But I think the overall trend and what I've been saying for a while is that the second half of May, even into early June, is going to see an uptake in severe weather, possibly tornadoes. That's always a possibility. This far out, it would be impossible to make a distinction between the severe weather types. You just need more detailed information. But just keep a heads up that it looks like after this week is over, beginning this weekend, things are on the uptick. Thanks for watching today's edition of Severe Thunderstorm Outlooks. This is published every day after the morning Storm Prediction Center update. Also, remember to check that site off on day 1 because they update it fairly frequently. If you like this video, please like it. Also, you can subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.